Hello, I'm Dr. Beth Powers,
And I'm Lauren McNeely.
and we are at Millersville University of Pennsylvania in the United States of America. We're thrilled to be with you today, at least via video. And the topic of our conversation will be about children's rights. The title is I Have the Right to Be a Child. And we're going to focus on how we used arts-based research and engagements to include children in conversations about their own rights and lived experiences. Okay, moving the slide along. There we go. I'm on the left, that's Beth, and on the right is
Lauren.
All right. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we encourage conversations with children about how they frame their own rights and how they envision those ideals. We collected data using a critical literacy protocol, a series of observations, structured interviews, and arts-based research methodology to scaffold their reflections. We're going to share some annotated children's drawings and direct quotes, and then we'll also discuss how our findings were arranged around four main themes: choices, family, friends, play, protection, and basic needs. And our findings most certainly do affirm Hart's 1999 notion that while children do have varying abilities to perceive of and relate about their own rights, they should have the opportunity to learn about them and give input on them.
So the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, what is UNRC? So it's the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child. It's the basis of all UNICEF's work. It actually stemmed from work that was based off of human rights, and they realized the importance of the rights of children. It is the most complete statement of children's rights ever produced and is the most widely ratified international human rights treaty in history.
Oops. There we go. We're going to specifically focus on the children's right to participate, and Lauren's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Yes, this work draws specifically on the United Nations Committee's general commitment, the child's right to be heard. So we want to make sure that we're giving children a voice, and that what they have in their minds is going to be instrumental in the decisions of their futures, which asserts children's right to participate in decisions affecting them and to have their views taken seriously. The views expressed by children may add relevant perspectives and experiences and should be considered in decision-making, policy-making, and preparation of laws and/or measures, as well as their evaluation.
We also draw on Article 13, and if you are interested in a in quotes, child-friendly version of the UNCRC, Save the Children has a free PDF on their website. Article 13, according to the Save the Children's kid-friendly version, says that you have the right to find out things and say what you think through making art, which is very important, of course, speaking and writing, unless it breaks the rights of others. So we're looking at Articles 12 and 13 in particular, but we also were interested in children's views about all of their rights in general. In a recent work that I collaborated on with Lacey Peters, Beth Swadner, and several other scholars from around the world, we discussed all of our related but separate research projects, this being one of them, and Lacey succinctly stated a firm idea that we all held, and that is that dominant views about children and youth are primarily centered on notions that they're pre-adult becomings, or as Cheney says in 2007, deferred citizens. It means that they have little agency and little influence over what they say, and how that impacts what happens to them. Moreover, Lacey built on Wells' 2013 notion that 12-year-olds and under are given less voice and respect and are seen as less than because they're more dependent upon adults. And often, young children particularly are seen as political props rather than engagers in civic conversations. We used specifically, as we mentioned before, critical literacy engagements, observations, structured interviews, and arts-based research to scaffold children and their perspectives, to share their perspectives. Some references that were particularly useful were Miles and Huberman, critical literacy model, which Lauren's going to share with you from Chaffel, and arts-based methodologies. And there's a reference at the end of our research by Barone and Eisner.
So for the critical literacy, we're really talking about how you pick a book and guide the students through that book, how to select a book, preview the book, develop critical questions to use during the read aloud, because you want the children interacting with the literature itself. Afterwards, you'll conduct a mini lesson to activate children's prior knowledge, do a picture walk, read the story, and stopping to discuss the questions. The whole point of this is to have the students give their own viewpoint of what the book or the story was actually about, instead of having the adult portray their viewpoint of it. Also, you want to put in open-ended questions that will allow the children to express their own viewpoints, ideas, thoughts, and experiences that they might be bringing forth to the story itself.
Okay, and specifically in this research, we used a book called I Have the Right to Be a Child, which depicts all the children's rights and uses beautiful art. And so that was a book that I collected most of the data using that book, reading to children from ages 3 through 12. And they reflected on what they thought were the most important rights, and then they drew pictures, and then they responded to what those rights meant to them. Our findings did, as we said before, affirm the notion that children do have the ability and the capability and the right to engage in conversations about those things that impact them. And our findings will be organized around the primary themes that emerge: choices, family and friends, play, and as well as protection and basic needs. In the following slides, Lauren will articulate what's in the slide, in the picture. We're going to show you some pictures of what the children's work was, and then I'll add some theoretical and practical implications after each slide is described.
All right, so this slide picture was drawn by a young student by the age of 4, and it's called This Is Human.
The idea behind this was quite interesting, because the child basically said all the rights were important, so that they drew, this is a whole human and all the rights are important.
So this actually has 2 depictions here. The one on the left is by a student who's age 9, and it says parents have the right to protect their kids for safety. And I thought it was interesting, there was another picture on the right-hand side drawn by a 4.5-year-old. This is actually depicting play, and how playing with their parents can have a direct influence on how they feel.
And actually, the child's right to protection and the child's right to play and recreation are both included in the UNCRC.
All right, this is done by a student age 11, and it says, I think children should be able to choose which religion to believe in, because they should be able to believe in what they think is right. It's pretty profound.
This particular child is interesting. She is of a Mormon background, and her family comes from a very different geographic region in the United States, and religion is a very central part of their world, and it's very important to this child and also their family. But she also was really supportive of all people's right to choose which religion they would like, which really informs the idea that children have the right to have their own opinions and to belong to groups that feel right to them. So that's also one of the articles about the right to membership.
This picture pretty much says it all. It has peace, and what I loved here is they had lots of bright colors depicting peace, and then a gun with a big X on it. And this child, Ethan, age 11, said, I believe children should have a say about war.
This relates to Article 38 of the UNCRC about children having the rights of protections in time of war, and also the right to protection. That was a very strong theme, protection and safety. All
right, this is done by, I believe she's 10,
Mm-hmm.
and she discusses that children's rights are as important as grown-ups' rights, maybe even more. Kids should have the right to do the same thing that grown-ups have the right to do. Not all, but some for one. I think children should have the right to vote. A lot of grown-ups just vote according to how rich or famous the president is and according to their party. Not very many people consider what the person will be like when they're president. Children should be able to take part in what school they go to, and parents don't often understand if their child is struggling. Kids should be able to believe in whatever they want. They should be able to choose their religion. This is all just my opinion, even though I'm only 10. I hope this letter will change the world. After all, the U.S. is
the land
of the free and the home of the brave. And then with their drawing, they have their hand and the Pledge of Allegiance around it.
This was particularly interesting. This child was quite critical of the current President of the United States policies and practices, and I think this drawing in particular shows the complexity that a young child can think about politics, about the state of the nation, and about society. And so it really reveals that regardless if a child was 4 or 10, that there is some complexity and some depth of thought that often children aren't given the credibility to have.
All right, and then we have this one, I believe, is by the same
artist,
Alana. She says, I think children should have the right to vote. I think this because some grown-ups vote for some people based on their party or how much money they have. Maybe if kids vote, the presidents that get elected will be trustworthy and change our world. After all, the U.S. is the land of the free. So this had a little more of a drawing inside of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to note that she wanted to do 2 drawings. Both of them were related, but when she saw the other children, one being her brother, writing about war, she got very interested in creating a second drawing.
And this is Kate, age 8, and this is her expressing where she would like to go to school.
So again, reflecting back on the rights of participation and membership. So there's several implications and recommendations of this study. One is that we need additional study, but we did find that obviously children do have the right to participate. Children can and should be included in conversations pertaining to their lives and their rights. And including children may require giving them multiple opportunities and ways to participate. Arts-based research and arts-based engagements are some of the primary way that all children can participate. And in our reference list, there are quite a few references that relate to children's participation, the ethics of child participation, because that is something we do need to protect vulnerable populations, but we also can't use that as an excuse to not include their voices. There are also some references into authors that write about ways to include children, like literacy through photography, critical literacy, and other arts-based research and teaching methodologies. I'm going to give it over to Lauren. Right there.
Additional research, theory, and practice elements are needed to inform our work, and adults need to remember that children deserve to participate and need to find ways to give them opportunities to do so. And finally, we need more art and artistic engagements. We want the kids to be able to express themselves in ways that they feel freeing as well as safe. And in order for them to do that, we have to give them the opportunities. So I think this kind of marries what we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah, and I think just giving the context of sending this presentation to you from the United States, the only country that hasn't ratified this UNCRC and also is limiting arts in many educational settings. We just would love to hear back from those of you around the globe who are engaging in similar work. We're interested in collaboration, and we're interested in learning more about examples where this can and does work in all settings. If you'd like to get in touch with us, my email address is beth.powers@millersville.edu, and Lauren's email address is?
It is lmcneely5915@gmail.com, and it's also on the first page of the slides, just in case forget.
We will share those slides with you via email. If you'd like to get in touch with us, again, you can email me at beth.powers@millersville, MILLERSVILLE.edu, and we would love to hear from you. All the best.